on what to do with your batting scraps. So I've been organizing, actually my assistant has helped me organize my batting scraps. A lot of times they're just real small pieces and we'll do all kinds of nice little easy stuff with that. But every once in a while you have some big pieces of batting left. And today we're going to talk about how you can use your big scraps, because these are big enough to put together and make a baby quilt. Basically, I use the grid on my floor. I've got a ceramic tile floor. They're 8-inch squares, and everything is nice and perfectly square here. So I can easily look and see if one side or the other is real square or if it's really wonky. If it's wonky, it's not going to work very well to stitch it together. But you can see that one side is already pretty straight on each of these pieces and one side is pretty uneven. Once you have two sides that are nice and straight, we're going to put them together. Now, you'd be tempted to take this over the sewing machine and just sew them together and not worry about it. Or at least I would be tempted to do that because I'm a little random abstract that way sometimes. But it's well worth the time to make this a little easier. So what we're going to do while it is sitting here and comfy and just resting and it's not being pushed or pulled anywhere, we're going to mark with our fancy little FriXion heat erasable highlight markers. We're going to mark on here where they actually meet together and they're happy and they're flat. You don't want lots of ripples and stretchy things to it. Otherwise, the two pieces together are going to end up like a ruffle on a skirt. One will be smooth and one will be stretched and whatnot, and it won't look good underneath your quilt. So what we're going to do is we're going to just make two little marks every so often, and you want this fairly close together, about a fist bump apart, because you want to be able to see two of those marks at a time when you're at the sewing machine. And you don't want them to be very big, you don't want them to be very dark, you don't want them to be terribly noticeable. They will erase, but if you live here in Minnesota where it's cold, those marks can sometimes come back in the cold. But anyway, you just mark that all the way down and then we'll take it over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how handy that is. Okay, so first of all, we have our little orange marks on the bed. It doesn't matter what color you use, but I have my little markings here. And remember I said you need them about a fist bump apart because that's how wide this space is here. And you want to be able to see the one that's up close to your needle, and you want to see the one that's down here. We'll stitch that amount and then you want to be able to see the next one again. But look at how easily we could stretch this just ever so slightly, and that would make a huge difference on how smooth everything is. If possible, using a knee lift is really handy because it will lift your foot pedal over here and you can keep your hands in place, so that is a wonderful feature if you have it. Otherwise, you've heard me say this before, but I love my hover mode. When I use hover mode, anytime I stop sewing, the needle will stop down and the foot will come up, and then that allows me to make adjustments. So those are two things that are really important. The other thing is what stitch I'm going to use. I don't want a straight stitch. I don't want a regular zigzag. I want this triple stitch. And you've heard me tell you about this before, but it's going to take 2 or 3 stitches depending on which sizes you have. I happen to have both, but I like this 3 stitch, 3 stitch, 3 stitch zigzag. It's really wonderful. I want it as wide as possible. You can make it smaller or bigger, but I want it as wide as possible. But I don't want it really close together. I want those stitches stretched out a little bit. I usually go to about 2 or maybe even 2.5 millimeters on my machine. Now I want to make sure that my thread matches the batting pretty well. I don't want it to show a lot. So I'm going to be using a cream on cream. We're going to thread that. I love those automatic threaders. Alrighty, we're going to take a few stitches. And again, I want a good 2.5 going on here. And now, you want to keep that open split in the center as much as possible, so you're having just as much stitch to the left or to the right as possible. And you want to make sure that your little dots are being close together, and you want to squish it together a little bit. Not a lot. Just kind of a happy medium. You want it squished together enough that you don't have any voids. Don't want any air spaces, but you don't want it mushed together. You don't want it bulky. You want it as smooth as possible. And you just keep squishing it nicely together, keep it nice and flat. And like I said, if you don't have those marks, it'd be so easy to have it off a little bit, and then it would be wonky and ruffly. And then I'm just going to show you how nice this looks. There. And see that has a few stitches to the left, a few stitches to the right, and it just holds it together very nicely. And now I can press those marks out of there, and that's going to be really handy and very useful. And so by using your bigger chunks of batting and putting them together, you can use them very nicely on baby quilts and things. You could even do big pieces if you wanted to, but especially if I'm going to be doing a double layer of batting, I'll want one piece to be brand new and solid, but oftentimes that second piece can be pieced like this. So anyway, come back and check out all of our other tips and hints that we're going to be having. See you soon. Toodaloo.